You know that ever since the shift, what we talk about government to governance, that's a major shift, and we are also trying to understand it ever since the monopoly of the media has gone to a duopoly. So it is in that context when we talk about media governance, it also helps us to understand what are the various other stakeholders, agents which are involved in making and managing media. This is what we find that when we talk about media governance, it provides a much wider field of engagement and scholarship which we look forward in the future. Oh, it's actually relevant in today's time because simply if you look at the whole technology convergence, what we talk about from analog to digital technology, and there is a technological convergence. As a result, the possibilities of what you call the legacy media is over. Now we are more and more getting into digital. So you'll have new kinds of rules, regulations, competitions, contracts, corporations. These are new areas to be engaged. And this is, mind you, this is not mere an Indian case, it's a global case. So it has a tremendous opportunities and future in the long run. I think we need to engage more and more because conventional legacy media, either you have been engaged in terms of what we call mass communication, but today it has become redundant. We live in a time of what we call the mass self-communication. So where you find there is a much more developments, and we do not, and also the way vertically, horizontally, the way media technologies have penetrated it, and it has its own repercussions, regulations, legal issues. I think it provides a well mapping area for in future for engagement. You see, we in India, we are still lagging behind. We are still sort of trying to think in terms of medium-centric understanding. You talk about print journalism, you talk about broadcast journalism, or you talk about teaching, electronic media or print media. I think they all converge in the era of governance. You find that when there is a technological convergence, I think we need to, because these are what you call horizontal expansions rather than vertical expansions. I think the larger issues and questions are on governance. So I think governance provides the future. Governance provides the future way of engaging with media. I think no matter sooner or the later, people have to accept, and people also sort of try to do work accordingly and look forward in future, then more and more engagement in terms of scholarship and media governance. Well, your perception, your understanding about media, and also a conventional notions are to be demystified, that it is no more a welfare state. It is not media simply as a public good. You also need to look at media as also marketplace of ideas. Then subsequently you talk about what is actually why media for public interest. I think when you talk about public interest, that it also comes that we need to revive and what we call reinvent media for larger public, where every public as a citizenry would like to question and concern about making media available for the commons. So this is what I'm saying when you talk about public interest rather than what we call a commercial interest or a private interest. We have been talking about public interest, and that is where we need to think in future how to make media more and more as a part of public interest. There is a much more work in EU, European countries, where they are sort of trying to strengthen more and more public media, public interest in media. And also you find some of the leading scholars like Marc Reboy in Canada, or even Manuel Puppies in Switzerland, or even Austria, Joseph Trappe, and there are so many, plenty of scholars now today. They're all working on governance, and also this London School of Economics They have been working more in terms of global governance. I think it's probably in Indian context, there is not much more use of such literature. But there are a few scholars in India, those who have been working, they have been extensively using this literature. You see, studying public policy is a matter of concern nowadays, because more and more we are engaged across disciplines. You know that we have spent a considerable amount of time studying micro studies. So these micro studies have not in any way helped in knowing or even generating a knowledge about larger questions or even long-term implications. And this is where we are sort of trying to now study more on macro questions. Studying policy governance is nothing but arrangements in terms of the way you try to understand the larger policy arenas. So policy study is actually public policy is a major area where in future there will be more engagements. This is where you find studying policy, and mind you that if you study it, you can apply in any discipline, not necessarily in media. You can also apply it in agriculture. You need to develop a kind of a think tank. You need to develop a kind of a thinking that how policies are not just to be implemented. Policies are to be as well framed. How to frame a policy, public policy, and that is what studying governance would like to address to all kinds of issues.